using sound as a force multiplier in virtual reality. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Jacqueline Bosnjak. She is the co-founder and CEO of Q Department and Mach 1. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy New Year, everybody.
And Happy New Year to you. A lot of things going to be happening in 2019 in the space of virtual reality. Before we get into that, what does Q Department and Mach 1 do, and what drove you to co-found each company?
All right, so Q Department is our music and sound design production studio. We've been in business since 2003, and early on in, I think maybe 4 years ago, we landed up at Sundance and witnessed a few VR pieces. And from there on, we never looked back. We started sort of experimenting in virtual reality sound production. And at the time, there were very little tools. There was nothing sort of established in terms of a pipeline or anything like that. And a lot of the directors that we worked with were experimenting in this new medium. One of the directors, Guy Shalmadine, came over with a early Gear VR and showed us a horror movie that he was working on, and it was so compelling. We experienced it, and after I took the headset off, both my husband Rajan and I could not think of anything else. And if you were in the storytelling medium, you had to be moved and sort of compelled to investigate this new medium where not only did you sort of leave with a sense of memory, but you also, it's a very compelling medium for sound.
Lockheed Martin is one of several companies working to take humans to Mars. Q Department and Mach 1 contributed to a Lockheed Martin project called the Mars VR Bus Experience. Explain the project and your contribution.
Well, that was a particularly interesting project because it came together with a few different things: haptics, sound, visuals. We were approached by a production company called Frame Store in New York, who we've worked with before. They do very interesting projects. And the sort of brief of the whole project was Lockheed Martin was sort of interested in sort of creating a new generation that would be interested in exploring space and interested in the sciences in terms of a career. And so that was the impetus behind creating the Mars VR bus. The actual vehicle became this sort of narrative device where children would actually get onto the vehicle, and at a certain point, the windows would actually become screens. And so you were sort of literally at this, you were at a magic bus stop. You got on a normal bus, and then when you left, you were on a Mars vehicle. And we used a lot of great technology to sort of bring that vehicle to life. In terms of Mach 1 and our sound technology, we use spatial audio with headphones and speakers on the bus connected with haptics in the chairs to make it even more realistic. Those haptics sort of matched the road and the visuals. And I don't know how Framestore did that, but it was a very interesting force multiplier to sort of project this idea that you were on Mars. And children went crazy for it. They sort of got on the bus expecting that they were going to visit a museum, and within 5 seconds, the windows changed into the Mars. Actual 200 square miles of actual real Mars terrain that was mapped. And we got to do the sound on that. And it was just like a really interesting project for us, because it definitely pushed the boundaries of what immersive sound can do with picture. And then when you put haptics in with that, that sort of is a force multiplier to just create this magical experience where your brain literally doesn't know whether you have gone somewhere or not. So it was a really interesting project.
Let's drill down on the technical aspects a little bit. In fact, let's talk about sound. What makes sound for VR different than sound in 2 dimensions?
Well, spatial audio is actually fixed off, so it's simulating how you actually hear in real life and creating this sort of stimulated version. So, you know, when done properly, your brain sort of thinks you're somewhere you're not. And I don't know if you've done any VR pieces that have great sound, but it's really if you're walking on a ledge, there's like a great piece where you're walking on a wire. It's really hard to trick your brain into actually stepping onto that wire, because with the sound effects and the visuals, you really transport it into that other location, and sound goes a long way to create that simulation of reality.
So what kind of technology hurdles did you have to overcome to create the right sound for a VR experience? What hardware or software did you have to develop?
Well, early on, obviously we have a sound production company, so there's a very established pipeline in Hollywood for creating very high production sound. And so when we were first presented with this medium where sound is critical to maintaining immersion, we were really excited about bringing all that knowledge, all that equipment and technology, both analog and hardware and software, into this new medium where sound was so important. What we found was that there were no sort of middlemen or pieces that could sort of bring that all together. And quite frankly, most people said, oh, throw everything you know out the window, it's all new, which we didn't want to do. And as a company, we initially started tinkering around with ideas of how to bring in a lot and preserve a lot of the art and craft of sound production and bring it into this new medium. And initially we thought somebody else would enter the marketplace and, bring some technology that we could use. But at a certain point, we're like, maybe we're the ones we've been waiting for. And we landed up patenting our technology. And subsequently, we've got an end-to-end workflow that allows you to work in spatial audio with any DAW that you've traditionally worked with. And an SDK that allows us to play back that format. So Mark 1 has sort of established this sort of middleman format that allows us to bring in all those amazing techniques and the craft and the masters that have been doing sound forever into this new medium. So that was an initial goal that we had. And currently we've put out tools that allow you to do that mixing. And then we've also integrated our SDK into apps like the New York Times or Nat Geo or Discovery, and working with companies to, basically deliver high production value spatial audio, which, you want to say that it's a sort of audiophile thing, but I think in VR, quality is actually critical for maintaining that immersion.
Tell us about Bose frames and what you actually contributed there.
Well, at the moment, we actually just went to ITFA, which is an amazing conference, a festival of documentaries in Amsterdam. We went there with a production company called Tomorrow Never Knows. And we did this amazing piece called Pilgrim, where you sort of latch on to people that are basically on this pilgrimage, and you get to hear their stories or move on and listen to another story. But it's a really compelling experience. It's kind of unusual that Bose entered the marketplace with sunglasses, and they're pretty cool and hip looking. But for us, it's sort of an obvious move because spatial sound is so powerful as a medium. And you can just imagine the idea of sort of leaving the subway and not having to look at that blue dot on your map. If you just get the audio signal, it's such a seamless way to not have to create these barriers in your life to open and unlock things. You just get the audio cue and you can move along your world very seamlessly. So for us, we were really quite excited about Bose entering the marketplace. And also when a big company like that values quality, it's also exciting because they're going to teach the consumer about spatial audio. Because one of the things that we've learned is, and even myself, now that I've listened to so much spatial sound, I want to hear spatial audio all the time. I think there's going to be a rise of new engineers, new composers, new sound designers that are going to specifically create content that can be leveraged through spatial. And I think it's going to be a very interesting medium for people to work in, not necessarily only with visuals in VR or AR.
You talked a little bit about what you think is needed. Here we are in 2019. What will the next big milestones be for spatial and VR moving forward?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. For me, I think it's really sort of nailing this new storytelling mechanism because I think that we've experimented a lot with bringing theater into VR, or how do linear films work, and how does interactive stuff work. And I think that nailing like new ways of telling stories is interesting. And I think that's where I think that when the content is compelling enough, everything else will fall into place. Because I think each generation, the headsets get better and better and better. And the Oculus Go right now is like an amazing untethered headset that's super easy to use. There's very little friction in terms of being able to put it on and just take it with you and be able to experience things. But I think that ultimately I'm excited about more directors coming into the space, and directors that have iterated enough that they start really evolving the storytelling mechanisms of this new medium. And I think that even maybe there's going to be a sort of convergence of things like immersive theater and even what Netflix is doing with Bandersnatch, the interactive piece that's got all the attention over the holidays. Like those kind of storylines and story plots, I think that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what people are going to do with this medium, and I'm very excited about that. I always sort of make a note about how the metaphor Plato uses with Plato's cave. Have you heard of that analogy? There's a story where he's referring to our sort of ignorance and ability, about reality. But it's sort of this metaphor about a cave where prisoners are sort of tired looking at a wall, and the only thing that they've ever seen in their entire lives is, as people are walking behind the cave entrance, the shadows projected on the wall is all they've ever seen, and that is their entire reality. If they were to break free of those shackles and walk through the light out of the cave and see the three-dimensional world with all its color and beauty, they would just be, maybe they would go crazy, because it would just be so different. And I feel like VR is that for storytelling. I think that we have been we've been connected to the screen, and finally we have sort of released from these shackles, and the sort of rise of new directors and storytellers that will really push this medium forward, and I think take it to where it's going to go.
Jacqueline Bosnjak, co-founder and CEO of Q Department and Mach 1. It's a real exciting future, and I'm excited to see the work that you're putting forward. If somebody wants to see more of that, or maybe they want to connect with you personally, how can they do that?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great way.
Sounds good. Thanks again. And if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or go to my website, tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.